month. And that also, excuse me phone, turning the phone off, turning the phone off. Howdy gentle humans, welcome back to this channel. It's Diana Chu here at SLOWGAZE. And yes, it's been a while since I've seen you. I've missed you so much. Seriously, I've missed you a lot. I've tried to film this like 5 times and I tried it all these different ways, and finally I was like, you know, Diana, done is good. I have to launch myself out there, put something up, reconnect with y'all, and just get the ball rolling again, especially since it's the new year. If you're seeing this, also happy Lunar New Year. I'm just happy to be back. So this video, I wanted to talk about what my no-buy has taught me. This is a really special video for me because I've been successful in my like 6 months of makeup no-buy. It started in July of 2021 and now it'll end in July of 2022. So I still have, you know, a full half a year to go, but it has been a whole 6 months of learning. I want to share with you exactly what I've learned, maybe some tips if you want to be on a no-buy or thinking about one, or you just launched into one this year, and just serve up a little bit more slow gaze content. If you haven't been here before, the ethos behind this channel is all about slowing down and gazing inwards. For me, it has been a whole journey, not just moving my collection from a more consumerist, fast makeup, fast fashion, like that kind of realm where everything was hyper urgent and about the newest novelty thing and trying out all the things and buying all the things. I really had to make a change, and with that came slowing down, actually appreciating what I had, tracking what I had, seeing what I actually used, and just being intentional. The word intention, I know that's thrown around and it's, you know, a buzzword at this point. To me, anything that you do intentionally has your attention. And if you give something your attention, your undivided attention, you really come to understand it holistically and deeply. So it's not just breadth, it's depth. Knowing yourself and knowing what you have and how that fits in with your lifestyle is like the true wealth of knowledge and power, to know yourself and know how things serve you and not how you serve goods. I definitely was in the opposite camp, and this channel has helped me get through a lot of learnings, and I just want to share some of them with you today. So please find me on SLOWGAZE, at SLOWGAZE on Instagram. It's been a little while since I've filmed. I'm also on the web, slowgaze.com. You can find me there. I have a little subscription, like newsletter, that you can add yourself to either there or in the comments down below. So let's get started. The things that I have learned from my 6 months of a makeup no-buy. So the first thing that I learned from this experience, and it will not come to us as a surprise to you, but I do want to put my own little spin on it. So the first thing I learned was I don't need that much stuff. Yes, we all know that. However, I realized that I bought so much stuff because I was serving other people, and I was serving all these other eventualities of myself, these facets of myself. Some people call them, you know, fantasy selves, but they were not just fantasies, they were kind of rooted in a past experience. So they were definitely like facets of myself, but Diana at a wedding, Diana on vacation, Diana at like a fashion-y event, something where I felt like, you know, I'd be seen by people that I admired, by maybe some colleagues, you know, rub some elbows, that sort of thing. Diana at yeah, a ritzy dinner with the husband, that kind of thing. Like there were so many facets of me that I was serving that when I watched all these videos about decluttering your fantasy self, I was like, okay, I can declutter all the fantasies of myself. I'm not ever going to be like on a TED Talk stage, and I'm not ever going to be, you know, etc., meeting the Queen of England. That would be lovely, but she probably wouldn't mind so much what kind of makeup I was wearing. So I had all of these fantasy selves that were, you know, easier to declutter, but I still was left with all of these true selves that have existed before, and I anticipated them to exist again. But it was the exact same mentality that I had with my wardrobe as like, what if? Some event happening where I needed to present in a very specific way. I realized I also had to declutter those. Same with the wardrobe. I really think there's a lot of like interlacing and overlapping with this type of learning for your makeup and for your wardrobe. They're all part of your outward presentation. and painting, you know, and painting in broad strokes on your body with clothes or pigment. They're all kind of the same. I remember seeing that statistic or that little rule of thumb that I wore 20% of my wardrobe 80% of the time. I'll say that again. So I wore 20% of my wardrobe 80% of the time. Same with my makeup. I wore 20% of what I owned on my face 80% of the time. And the other 80% of makeup that I actually owned, I rarely used it because they were serving these very specific niches of my life that may or may not happen again, and certainly wouldn't happen with the frequency that I was anticipating them to, and for them to warrant sitting around. Let's say I had a really beautiful palette, an eyeshadow palette that had many colors on it, but it was just for like springtime. It went with a specific cool toned lip, never presented itself as an everyday use object. And so I had to bring myself down to the essential truth that I simply didn't need to own it. If I really needed a color, I could go out and find something specific for like Halloween or that event, and I would allow myself, you know, maybe 1 or 2 purchases like that. Didn't need to own like a Tom Ford African Violet eyeshadow palette just for that eventuality that may never come, and the eyeshadow palette might expire. All of these rational reasons, but I found out that I was really feeding my emotional self despite all the rational reasons against me accumulating this much stuff. I had to live for my 80% Diana, my everyday Diana, my wants the fewest amount of steps but still wants really high quality makeup that is in the cleaner realm, or at least that has less packaging, that's women owned. Like, all of my values, I can still encompass that, and I still have so many products at my disposal, but I didn't need every single thing accounted for. So going back to my bare bones, my essential self, that's who I had to live for every day, and there would be exceptions, but I would plan for those exceptions and not let those overwhelm what I truly, truly need, which was very little. My second learning from my 6-month no-buy is probably, to me, the most life-changing because it gets down to the quick. So let me give you a quote. Epictetus, an old-timey philosopher of the ancient realm, he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Yes, I do find myself really caught up in the best of the best and the holy grails and curating and having the most perfect minimalist collection of just perfectly polished, beautiful things that fit in with my lifestyle, that fit in with my aesthetic, that are, yeah, check all the boxes of it's green, it's clean. And those aren't things to sneeze at. I'm making a little bit fun of myself because I can tell that a lot of it is maybe performative, or that I feel like I'm making activist choices and actions that do hopefully reverberate in the real world, and hopefully they do. However, it's on such a small scale that honestly they've loomed large in my brain, and I shouldn't hold them to such a high virtue. Yes, buying something that's women owned is great, but I have to be also cognizant of like the context behind that. Yes, it might be women owned, but is she a figurehead? Is she the CEO? Is she the founder? Like buying something by Bobbi Brown, the brand, she no longer runs that company. I actually don't know who owns that company, and it's probably part of a larger conglomerate. And is that owned by a woman? Who, you know, what is the transparencies behind those bigger companies and behind the actual companies that I'm buying from? And how much of that does that matter to me? The representation of Black and brown bodies, the representation of Asian bodies, the representation of their sustainability, all of that should factor into my checkbox of women owned, right? So backtracking, Diana likes to just float off into the distance and just ramble on. So do I need the best of the best, the curated, perfect collection? No, absolutely not. I want something that's passable as I slowly learn more about these companies, as I learn more about these brands, or I make peace with the fact that I'm never going to learn more about them. Like, I have to reconcile that. I need to slow down long enough to do either or, And to slow down also means to really truly appreciate every aspect of the items that I already have. So if I have makeup that I come back to and then I like say, it's kind of I fall out of favor with it. For instance, the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow. I feel like I've been on and off and on and off with it. I've decluttered it, I've recluttered it, I've decluttered it, someone's given it to me, and sometimes I just find like it's magic. Some days I just feel like the fiercest, most powerful person because the highlight is hitting my cheeks just perfectly. Some days I feel like it's the wrong tone of bronzer contour and I just look a little dead, and back and forth and so on. Maybe that's okay. Like maybe if it is useful to me half of the year, it's still a very useful object. And I shouldn't continue to look for something that will be all end all, great for 365 days, that ignores the seasons, that ignores my skin texture, the fact that I tan during the summer. My realistic expectations are not at all realistic. So that already will help cull some of my yearnings. The real idea of not wanting is the most difficult. And like I said, that's the most life-changing learning that I've had from these 6 months. It's a learning, but again, it's a rational learning. It's not something that I can like detangle my emotions from very easily, because not wanting, that brings up a lot. Every time I buy something, I feel like I'm not only buying something that I want, but I'm also appeasing a part of me and filling part of my spiritual void. Shopping is more about placating the symptoms of wanting versus actually fulfilling the parts of my wanting and my being and my spirit and all parts of me that want something. We want to be connected to our fellow humans. We want to feel loved. And those are the true things that I can focus on without buying things. Buying things is really just the band-aid on something that I feel like maybe I'm lacking. Especially with this pandemic, I feel like I've certainly been lacking in the social connection realm. I feel like, yeah, maybe I'm not as important as I used to be in like such a funny sense, because I've been behind a screen, behind a computer, in Zoom meetings. It really literally feels like my body is going to waste. It feels like my physicality is getting eroded. I am only seen through the lens of, and I'm flattened from 3 dimensions. Literally feels like my body is useless. That's a really strange and terrifying feeling. Also because I've just been sheltering in place for so long, not wanting to risk the health of anyone that I care about or the people that I live with, namely Ben. I don't know why I said people. I live with my husband Ben and my cat Yukon, and it just feels like all of the support systems and the things that have given me like personal significance and connection and love, and making myself feel powerful through exercise and going out on long walks or going to the park or traveling, those support systems have completely waned, if not just gone away. Self-medicating, I guess, and numbing myself through purchases. And YouTube doesn't help. Going on YouTube being like, oh hey, I'm here with new things and I want to tell you all about them, and people asking so many questions and connecting to you on that level is really fun. Don't get me wrong. I really do love talking to you on the comments, and I would say that my most connection that I feel with you is when we comment on things and say like, we're going through the same stuff. Thank you so much for talking about this or sharing, you know, and that makes me feel really good and like spiritually fulfilled. But when I'm going into a video just to review a certain type of makeup or a certain foundation or lipstick or even decluttering a little bit, it feels like an empty connection, if you know what I mean. Of course, marketing and all of the giant systems and engines behind marketing and advertising, it is within this capitalist system. It is so hard not to talk about shopping and wants without talking about capitalism. I'm not gonna launch into a whole spiel. I'm just gonna say that we're working against gigantic forces. Every time we say, actually, no, I'm not gonna buy that. Actually, no, I don't need that. I'm actually fine with A, everything that I have. B, if I'm not, I can mend it or upcycle it or recycle it, and I don't need to replace it. I don't need to upgrade. No, I'm fine. I actually think that the newest, coolest, cutest thing that I've seen that's gone viral, I'll just opt out. Like, that is directly defying the objectives of living in this modern age in a capitalist democratic society. It's also flying in the face of everything that I know as comfort, as social cachet, as showing off that I'm doing okay. It's really, really wild when you start to dig back into all the implications of opting out of shopping culture. Belong to a certain tribe of, you know, beauty is also a whole behemoth of unpacking. So maybe that's another video to unpack what it even means to be part of this beauty conversation, to buy things in a very gendered way, I would say. Constantly had to tell myself, like, my husband doesn't wear makeup, and I think he is beautiful and perfect as he is because he has the face he was born with. And yet, why do I feel like I'm subpar? It's totally because of all of this hype and historical, traditional, cisgendered women presenting in this certain way. And I feel like I have to be part of it in order to keep up appearances, to feel like I'm approachable and familiar, and to compete. I will say that quote again because it really, really struck me when I heard it today. It's wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The third and final thing that I learned during the 6 months of my makeup no buy is this. Tracking is key. So I am not at all a tracking person. I am an artist in the true stereotypical sense of the word. I am all about the chaos. I am about the painting of the broad strokes, the gestalt, the look of things, the feel of things, the intuition. You know, I know I'm giving you huge generalizations here. I don't actually mean to say that all artists are like this, but I do feel like I pander to some of those stereotypes just because whenever I talk to my mom, she's like, oh, you're just an artist, you know? And it is a dismissal, so I don't mean that. Let me bring this back around and say the irrational brain. I really want to move through life in a very sensual way. And the idea of turning to a spreadsheet and logging numbers and making data inputs and fields and beep, beep, boop, boop, boop is terrifying. It's horrific to me. And yet I do it anyway because I have found no better alternative to turning inwards and gazing inwards and finding gratitude through some cold hard numbers. I know it's perverse. I found it perverse at first. I have tracked through, you know, even just writing on a little piece of paper how many makeup items I've had and then tallying them all up and seeing that I have almost 200 pieces of makeup. I think the last count that I had about 180 pieces of makeup, including brushes and lip things and what have you. It shocked me, but also did not surprise me, knowing my habits and knowing how deep I was afflicted in consumerism. I do that especially with my wish lists. Speaking of which, I do have things that I want to buy in July, but every time I put something up on the wish list and I return to it a week later or so, when I find something else and I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to try that, I often look back at my wish list and I see that there are things that I no longer lust over, which is great. So I take them off my wish list. And then I have this ever revolving list. And hopefully by the time this no buy ends, which is July 2022, I'll have a list that feels really curated and I will feel completely comfortable buying everything off that list in one go if I want, which was likely to happen, or if I'm like, no, I want to pace myself out, the urgency has completely gone. So I really love tracking because I can see that I don't need the thing just then. Like when I feel the like heart clenching need to buy something, I merely go to my wish list. I feel like, oh yeah, I'm doing something, I'm tracking it, so at least I feel like I've inputted it or put it in my cart. It kind of diffuses that lust. And then I also find that I don't lust after that anymore after a week, after a month, or when I return and I say, actually, no, I found something like the perfect peach blush. Again, I find that I already have it in this other product that I own. And so that to me has really dispelled the notion of needing something. I can still be very frank with myself and say, yep, this is a list of wants. It's not a wish list, it's a want list. I also find that tracking helps me just see all of the things that I've ever wanted in my life. You can try to track things, and every time you don't buy something, you tally up the amount of money that you would have spent on it anyway. That's also a fun motivator. But I think using language is really important. So instead of saying wish lists, it really is just non-essential wants. Just spelling it out, making it not floating in your head. I highly recommend tracking things. Again, the spreadsheet is great. In your notebook is great, and doing it for long enough to see patterns emerge. I don't feel as bad tracking and spending time with my spreadsheet than I do just aimlessly browsing and looking for things to add to my roster of wants or to add to baskets. Again, it's time and attention paid to what you already have towards getting to know yourself better versus giving all the time and attention to like a shiny website or to lusting after things that you don't have. It really just flips the script, and I find that my time is more constructive versus consumptive. I'm gonna leave you with a little ending. I really thank you for watching. I have missed you all so much, and I just want to offer a little explanation as to where I've been for the past like few months, because I kind of dropped off the face of the earth for a little while. I'm still on Instagram, but for YouTube, I really had to slow down and gaze inwards and see what I was doing with my life, quite honestly. As many of you will know, or maybe you don't, I'll link some relevant videos down below. I quit my corporate job. Corporate America, brand marketing, all the gambit. It was a high-paying job, especially a job, you know, in a place that is in the Midwest of the United States. It's not a high cost of living. It was a really good gig, and I left that in June of last year. So I've spent this past last year not only focusing on not shopping and focusing on tracking, but I've also been focused very much so on building my own business. So I've turned myself from a dropout into an entrepreneur, and I've been so glad that I've done that, because I have found a new level of learning. I don't even know how to tell you what I've learned. It still feels so fresh and new, but I feel like I'm finding my groove. I'm constantly learning. I'm back on my feet, and I'm happy again. And that is priceless. I really can't tell you how much of a transformation I've experienced in this past half a year, despite the pandemic, or maybe because of the pandemic. There's, again, like I felt like I was disintegrating literally, but I also felt like I was building myself up block by block. And YouTube is just a great channel, like literally a channel for me to express myself and to connect with you and to talk about things that I care about that maybe I don't feel like my friends in real life care as much about, namely beauty and fashion and just things that I found myself in excess with. YouTube has been a therapy for me, but I had to take a step back because it is a hobby. I'm making a little bit of ad revenue on the side, but it's not like a big part of my livelihood, but it was a big part of my self-expression. But I wanted to return, but I just had to focus on my business. And if you want to check out my business, I can also leave some things down below. I run a graphic design firm. I'm a creative director there, and we also do some risograph printing, which is a type of printing that has been really adopted by artists and photographers and zine makers and print lovers alike these past, like, I don't know, 20 years. It's been in a full resurgence since the 80s, when it came out as like an alternative to Xerox machine printing. So it's just this really cool retro vibe style print. So my husband and I have been really trying to focus on our finances. Obviously, me quitting my job, I had a lot of anxiety, but I knew I had to do it. And one of the stipulations that I had in my brain was, I have to do this, but also focus on what really it means to me. Because now, for once, and for the first time literally in my life, every waking moment that I have is on my time. it is for me. I am working for me. And it means that I finally am responsible for everything. And so I figured, hey, if I'm responsible for myself, it's not this company that's, you know, gonna pay me a paycheck as long as I show up and do my job and try to do it well. I literally have to push for myself. And I know the sentiment is not something that's unknown to you, but it really hit me as a true truth. It hit me with the force of 1,000 trucks. Again, I'm like such a good rambler, I think. I just go off on tangents, but little hiatus from YouTube was really integral to my well-being. I did miss you a lot, and I hope that we'll connect again soon. Please take care. I hope you're doing well, and yeah, connect with me down in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about, if you're on a no-buy, and we'll see each other soon. Adios.